Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sporting Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderploeg, joined once again, as always, by my good friend Cody Welton. This week on the podcast, every time we think we'll have a nice slow week to talk about 2026 planning for the sporting Kansas City, we are inundated with topics that we really want to chat about and bring our takes to you about. This week, that includes a pair of U.S. men's national team matches that both subverted some of my ranting on the pod last week, as well as were exceptionally entertaining, which is not something we've become used to seeing from this team of late. So we definitely want to dive into both matches and provide some discussion and analysis of what certainly seems to be a Mauricio Pochettino plan coming to fruition. The Kansas City Current dropped a bomb earlier in the week, announcing some significant leadership changes in the soccer operations department, as Caitlin Carducci would be leaving her role as general manager to be replaced by Ryan Dell, who recently joined from Racing Louisville, as well as the shocker of all shockers, which was Vlatko stepping back from his duties as head coach to focus on his expanded role as global sporting director. To say this took everyone by surprise would be putting it pretty mildly. We discussed the potential of an MLS schedule switch to a fall-spring model to align to the European leagues that would come to a vote last week, which it did and was passed starting in the summer of 2027. We'll have more details on what that change is meant to look like, as well as the details yet to be ironed out. And that was far from the only MLS news of the week, as the Apple TV deal was amended, Don Garber appears to be heading towards retirement at the end of his current contract, and Ernst Tanner is reportedly a pretty shitty human being who is now on administrative leave. We'll also dig into the last U.S. women's national team roster of the year and some heartwarming results as CONCACAF World Cup qualifying came to a close. So, Cody, neither one of us were super intrigued by this U.S. men's national team camp going in. When the roster came out, wasn't that exciting. There was Reyna discourse. We had a bit of it on the podcast last week. But it seemed like having a lot of second or even third choice players at a lot of positions meant that it was unlikely we'd be able to glean much from these games or enjoy them much at all. Boy, were we wrong. This is probably the most entertaining U.S. men's national team window I can recall in recent memory. Perhaps the most noteworthy thing was that Pochettino was able to almost completely rotate the squad from match to match and get positive results from both of them. So we could honestly go on for a couple hours just talking about the different things we saw in these matches. There was a lot of intriguing things going on, as well as performances from players that were very interesting to analyze. But realistically, there are other podcasts out here that cover this team a lot in a lot of detail regularly. So I suggest that you definitely listen to those, TSS being one of them. Looks like Greg Velasquez is back on Scuffed this week, so definitely go listen to that. So we're going to try not to be too repetitive, but also want to bring you our takes and analysis of what we're seeing. Before we dig into the matches, though, why don't you give me your biggest takeaway from this window? It could be a player performance or a larger ideological platform coming to fruition. What really stood out to you about these two performances?
The thing that stands out to me is honestly it's not tactics or player specific. It's just vibes. It's the vibe shift behind the whole endeavor, and the fact that the team, even when comprised of maybe not first choice starting players.
Don't call them non-regulars.
I know. I didn't. I was stumbling over what I needed to call them. So scrubs. Even though we were playing the scrubs.
Something tells me Poch might get even more upset about that.
Oh, he would. And then I would say, look, man, I'm just giving some gas to the fire here. Relax, because they played. They were to say they were competitive as doing them a disservice. I mean, they were physical and played with intensity and aggression, and they were dogs. They were up for the fight in both matches, and that was part of my concern going into it. Is that both of the guys are they're physical, intense South American teams who go through the meat grinder of CONMEBOL and have come out on the other side and are already qualified, both of them, and
I mean, not just
the
qualified, like Uruguay out-qualified Brazil.
Right. The United States went toe to toe with those teams, and I think that, like I've been just thinking about, just in general, the vibe around Argentina's national teams, in the past, decade, maybe Messi aside, and thinking about how that jives with the vibe of the U.S. men's national team, and I think that there's just a like a hard nosed edge to them. I think that we've seen the last handful of games that is heartening, right? Because it means that they're going to be competitive regardless of who they play. That they're not full of elite talent, and it's going to be an uphill slog either way. But the fact that this is not a team who I think anymore is going to be a pushover. It used to be that during Greg's tenure that they really got up for Mexico games, and you could see that was the true matchup that really got their juices flowing. And it really seems that they don't match those highs, but they have upped the level of their games to where that they are consistently bringing intensity in every match, and that's what you have to do. And the fact that he's been able to cultivate an environment that encourages that and demands that from your quote unquote second and third string players, like that is huge. It's a really big deal, especially when you think that when you think back to the last game that the United States played at the last World Cup, and how dead the midfield was, and how worn out that team looked, because basically there were the starters and that was that, right? There was a huge drop off after that, and I just don't get the sense that that's the case right now. I thought, and I'm sure you thought so too, and lots of other people thought, I thought that they were just going to get destroyed by Uruguay last night, because Uruguay was playing maybe not their complete first choice team, but still a lot of really high level.
It was everybody
players.
except Valverde and Nunez, right?
Right. And
that was it. I mean, it was everybody except those two guys.
I mean, and those are two big misses, but they've
still got Ronaldo Araujo,
right.
And they have Rodrigo Bentancur, Manuel Ugarte, who, in my opinion, was fucking nowhere in this match. By the way, just absolutely nowhere.
He looked like Manchester United Ugarte.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly,
really
it's just like, what was the point? But I mean, that the United States came out and they stuck it to that team, and they looked comprehensively better in every single respect, and that is. That's like flabbergasting, honestly. I can't remember the last time like we were that presently surprised by the United States men's team. There have been nice wins along the way, specifically against Mexico, but I can't remember the last time I tuned in to watch them, and was like really pessimistic and just had them totally blow me away. Like, it was amazing. It was like I don't even like.
I texted you to see if you were watching the game after the second goal, and you're like, "I think so. Is this real?"
It felt like something that was a dream, like it shouldn't be happening. Just because they were so comprehensively better, and I think
Uruguay was not at the races in this one.
They looked really bad, like really really bad, like checked out, poorly coached. Whatever you want to say, they were bad.
I don't want to say poorly coached. I don't think Bielsa would ever.
I know, but did they not look poorly coached?
They didn't look ready for the match in any way, shape, or form, which is surprising. I would say that we're going to get to that. I'm going to get to that point here in a little bit, but. I'm gonna kind of go back to your original point, which is the vibes and just like the feeling around this team. It's not often that you and I are spending a ton of time talking about nebulous things like vibes, right?
Right.
Like, we're generally trying to discuss like structures and tactical things and like sort of performances within those structures. And I promise you we have plenty to get into there because there were some things that I really enjoyed about how they were utilizing their structure in both games. But the vibes part is something that we have discussed in the past that has been missing from this team.
Yeah.
One of the things you could always count on the U.S. men's national team to be, even when they were at a talent deficit, was a motherfucker to play against.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they were going to work hard. It was going to be a difficult match when you played against them. You were not going to easily, beat them. They were going to get into challenges. They were going to be industrious. All of these sort of euphemistic phrases and adjectives that were commonly used for the national team because it was true. That was very much kind of how this team has come up since finally qualifying again for the World Cup in 1990 and then in 94. And it was always a team that was punching above its weight, so to speak, right?
Right.
And post the 2018 World Cup qualifying debacle and Greg taking over and bringing in a bunch of these young players who nominally play in Europe, we saw sort of a loss of that sort of bite and that sort of, vibes, as you were saying, like just sort of the Matt Doyle likes to call it ex-dog, right? Like just that, like, just being really bought into the intensity of the match and trying to make it an intense match for your opponent. And that's a Peter Vermees thing too. Like, that was a big thing about him, is like he always wanted his players to be, no matter what your talent level was, there was an expectation of a level of effort and that you were putting in on every single play at all times, both mentally and physically. And I think that we lost some of that. I mean, for all of the good that Berhalter did, I don't think he was a bad coach by any means. Mm-mm. I think he was very focused on structure and repetitive structure and getting these guys into a place where they knew what to do and they could just execute it. Pochettino has come in and sort of, I don't want to say diminish the value of the structure, but certainly made the intensity and being up for the match more important, right? And even in that, and I'll get into this a little bit, sort of in his structure and how he wants them to play using that intensity, right? And it's just it's different, and it sort of combines the need for high quality players that can execute with the need to be able to, when a guy tries to grab you and grab the ball off of you in the 89th minute of the match, be ready to just get into it with him.
Yeah.
And then have your teammate come flying in to help you. Yeah. And, I'm not a big fan of, bench clearing brawls. I think that gets a little bit too much. But I think the bench clearing brawl happened because the Paraguay guys were frustrated as fuck about what was going on in that game. Yeah. And so they resorted to that. It wasn't that the U.S. was trying to start a fight. It was like more that you're not going to physically intimidate us, and we are here as well. And I just don't think that has been a thing. Remember the whole thing when Weston McKennie's like jersey got ripped off basically in a game against Mexico, and almost nothing happened when that happened, right? It was a bunch of Mexican players, but there wasn't that, protect your teammates, we're all in this together sort of vibe. And Pochettino has definitely instilled that in these guys. Yeah. And say whatever you want about his rant at the end of this game in the press conference, which we'll probably get into a little bit. I did end up finding the video and watching it, and I do think it's interesting about how he goes about it. But he said this several times. This is not about this player, this player, this player. And he points to the badge over and over again. It's about this. It's about this badge. We are here for this. And I think that mindset is definitely, reverberating through the team and has become a thing where these guys are very together now and very much playing for each other. And additionally, because he's had to bring so many different players in due to injury or due to situations where he's had to sort of send messages about the guys who weren't getting that, right, weren't participating in that, he's got, like I said before, a level of quality of depth that I never really thought was possible, right? And I don't think there was any way a year ago you could have said Sebastian Berhalter might be going to the World Cup.
No, that would have been hilarious.
It would have been absurd. But you watch
Yeah.
him play against Uruguay and be a much better midfielder than any of the guys Uruguay had on the field.
Yeah.
And you recognize that, okay, that this can work. This can happen. And at the very least, I'm not worried when Poch decides in the 75th minute of a game at the World Cup, we need to bring Berhalter on to help close this game out. Right? And I think that a year ago would have frightened a bunch of men's national team fans. So
Sure,
I think
absolutely.
just between sort of the vibe shift, which has been important and has needed to happen, but as well as creating a group of probably 50 players, all of which you would feel comfortable at some level playing minutes in the summer of 26, is not something I could have expected in the least a year ago.
Well, I think it's an important distinction. I think that the style of both Greg and Pochettino, both of those styles kind of serve to raise the floor, set a high floor for the team. And Greg's approach was sort of that systems based approach that those of us who are Sporting Kansas City fans are very familiar with. It's like positional play, all of those things, a well structured team, and much like other teams that we have seen around the globe, who club teams who have played that sort of structured style of soccer, it works really well when you have your best 11 players, right? The players who are well drilled and who know and that the drop off occurs when those are not the players who are on the squad, right? And this approach does the same thing. It raises or sets the floor high, but it spreads that out to where like everybody is responsible for setting the floor, right? It's not just reliant on the starting quote unquote starting 11 players. Everybody who is in the program knows that the minimum that's needed in order to be to be considered when call-ups happen. And so that has the same consequence, but it's I think a lot more durable, right? It's a lot more flexible, and it lends itself to the other aspects of Pochettino's coaching, which have, I think, to a point that you've made, they've really focused on building in sort of a flexibility, a durability, and an ability to play in different styles against different opponents, and to do so like with competency and with confidence. And I think
still
that's
within a general structure and an idea. It's like their principles of play stay fairly similar.
Yep.
But Paraguay and Uruguay were two completely different opponents defensively.
Yep.
And I do think it's noteworthy that he swapped the whole fucking team basically to play Uruguay.
It's crazy.
But that team was so ready to deal with Bielsa's man marking system.
Yep.
It just played through it, man. I could not believe how easily that they played through it versus the game against Paraguay where Reyna was a distribution hub and sort of faded between lines a lot and just did his shit. And we're going to get to Reyna because he was fantastic in that game.
Yep.
But
that's a game that the Paraguay set up sort of, and it lent itself to having that sort of player make
100%. Yeah. And I think that shows both we're dealing with a guy who's managed a bunch of matches in the Champions League and some of the largest clubs in the world, including Tottenham Hotspur.
And I think you meant, and also Tottenham Hotspur.
But he the guy's seen a lot, and he's aware of tactical trends. He's aware of different ways of going about doing things, and the fact that he was obviously pretty prepared for both of these games and what they would require, and kind of set up two different lineups to maximize against those. Because the other thing was he had in the match against Paraguay, he had Brendo and Christian Roldan up there, basically providing all the pressing cover for Gio, so he didn't have to press, even though he's probably a little bit responsible for the goal that was scored because he can't press. There was like understanding, right? There was understanding of strengths and weaknesses of his players. He put on different players that would sort of complement each other well and complement what he was trying to do well. And like, that's the other thing. It's one thing to have 26 guys you can count on. It's another thing to know how to employ them against different opponents and get good results out of it. Once you've developed the confidence and in their abilities to do stuff. Because, I mean, I think a lot of people, and you sort of alluded to this, when we saw the lineup against Uruguay, I was like, oh shit, is this going to be like Switzerland, right? Like where he rotated the whole squad and they got absolutely dog walked, right?
Yeah.
And it was the opposite of that. Because we had all that time with all of these guys at the Gold Cup and various other camps where they had really sort of the principles instilled in them and the training methodology and whatnot. Poch even said in the post-game press conference, he's like, this looks like a professional team now when we're training. They're training like professionals. He's like, in March, maybe not so much. Now that's what we're seeing. And you see it on the field.
Yeah.
Maybe let's start. Okay, let's dig into.
I think. Well, I did want to sort of touch on the stuff we were talking about, because it's going to make the United States really difficult to prepare for if you're playing against them, because you've seen now, like, the people who follow this team day in and day out, not even those people know what the best 11 is. Not even those people know who's going to get called up or who's going to play and what the style is going to be or who's going to step up in the game. Like, there's nobody to key on, and it makes them way less predictable and a much tougher opponent, especially in a knockout tournament type format.
Remember, that was the whole conversation about Greg in the World Cup in 2022 was when he came up against Netherlands, he got sort of outcoached, right? Because
it was predictable.
Right.
Everybody knew what was going to happen. Everybody knew how they were going to play. Everybody knew who was going to play. It wasn't
Louis Van Gaal, who's been around the block once or twice, saw exactly what the system was and knew how to prepare his team for it and take advantage of it, right?
Yep.
And take advantage of the wandering nature of Tyler Adams in the system as well, right? And just really, they scored the same goal twice, basically, right? Like, it was clear that there was a very specific thing that they were trying to accomplish, and I don't think you can do that against this team now. I really don't.
No.
And that's
no. And in fact, this team will do that to you, right? Because this team is that appears to be that meticulously prepared, and it is.
Remember 6 months ago when we were trying to figure out if Poch actually even watched players and knew what they were good at.
Yeah.
But
he knows ball.
We're just a little confused. We were a little confused about what he's doing. The plan's coming together now. We're like, oh, okay, now I see it. And remember, he said this back in June. He was like, look, I know what I'm doing. I promise you, I know what I'm doing.
It's 4D chess, but it's by 4D chess by like a chess master, not by like fucking Jurgen Klinsmann, right? Like, this is like serious.
Well, I had concerns because it felt a little Klinsmann-y. It felt a little just like, what the fuck is this? Is he even trying? Is he just throwing guys out there?
Even the call up for this window, even the roster for this window was like, what are we doing here? This is kind of weird, but you can't argue with the results, and the results were pretty resounding. It wasn't even like they had one stinker of a game and then I guess an okay game. It was like two pretty comprehensive, impressive games, and without that overhead kick goal, I mean, we would be talking about it probably even more effusively.
Even that. I mean, there was and that's the thing I loved about it, is that they obviously took their foot off the gas around the 38th minute or so, and Uruguay started to get into the game more and got a bunch of chances towards the end of the half. And they would show Poch on the sideline, and he was pissed. He was like, "This is not what we're doing." He's like, "I don't care if we're up 4-0. Like,
Yep.
we play all the time. And that has always been his vibe. Like, 100%. He's like, you play to every whistle. Like, and I'm sure he went in that locker room and told him as much, right? Like,
Yeah.
good job. I'm glad that we're up 4-1, but you can't shut off like this. We cannot allow this because we're not always going to be up 4 goals.
Yeah.
And you have to be dialed in all the time. And they were super dialed in coming out of the second half. And it was just, it's like I said, I mean, I'm trying not to be too much like correlation causation, but ever since like the second half against South Korea, this team has been different.
Yeah, and so what you need to do is, if you get a little bit nervous,
And there was a tactical switch in that game. That was kind of when they switched kind of the roles a little bit, and they've been running with it ever since with the principles of play. And so like he made a switch, and it's unlocked something, and he's sort of iterating on it now, right?
And the way you know that he is a good coach is that which players are playing better. Like it's a long list, right? Which players are surprising with how
who's playing worse,
mature.
Right? Like,
Right.
think
So
about it.
that's it. And it's like it's basically nobody, right? And you see players who are putting in, performances that are like revelations, right? And, we've seen in the past few windows, we've seen Roldan do that. We've seen Freeman do that. We've seen Gio do that. We've seen, Brendan Aronson is like, looks almost competent. That's the most I can get. That's the closest I can get to a compliment.
He still tries to do too much. He's doing too much all the time. But I mean, that's always Brendo. At least now he draws fouls when he's doing too much, as opposed to just getting the ball taken off of him. But
I mean, and I think that the mistakes are they're still present, but they're less and they're better covered for than maybe we've seen in the past. And so I think that
because they play as a team now. So like a guy makes a mistake and his teammates right there.
Their structure, even when they were up against Uruguay, their structure was really nice, right? It was they were balanced, they were tight, they were compact. Their defensive structure was really exactly what it needed to be, and that is a well coached team, right? Like that's all there is to it. When you see that sort of like well-defined structure where everybody knows their job and is not only knows their job but is doing their job at the highest level, that's good soccer, and it's well-coached soccer, and it makes me happy.
Agreed. Okay, let's do
so
a little
Pochettino to Sporting Kansas City is the.
I mean, I don't think that
I
don't think as much as I would love that. I don't think that is. I mean, the press conferences alone would be amazing. But I think that he has higher aspirations after this World Cup.
As he should.
He should. I mean, it is proving out, I think, and he is going to have every job offer in the world. If this team gets to like a quarterfinal, semifinal of the World Cup, he is going to have every job offer on earth. So, and which he should. Like, he deserves it. Okay, let's get into each game a little bit. Let's start with the Paraguay game. I know that one was was back on Saturday and might not be as fresh in our minds. But I think, first of all, I went on a little bit of a rant, Gio Reyna last week, mainly because I think that the focus on him is a little bit overdone, and because I just don't think you can rely on him to be healthy. There is no doubt in my mind that when he is healthy, available, and tuned in, which is another part of it, he has to be tuned in, he is the most talented player this team has. Period. I don't think it's even close. And that was fully on display against Paraguay. You got the full, like, tuned in, like, ready to fucking go Gio Reyna, the guy that you would see it against Mexico in the Nations League final and whatnot. Like, this guy that was just ready to fucking go. You saw that version of him. And Poch, I just noticed, like, how aware he is of space. Like, that is my thing with Gio. It's like, obviously, the back heels and the one-touch passes and understanding where his teammates are, all of that, great and awesome. But what enables him to do all those things is his understanding of space, where it exists, and being able to float into those areas and avail himself to his teammates. And he was just causing all kinds of havoc to Paraguay's defensive structure because he floated in between their lines constantly. And they were just constantly, and Roldan and Tessman were constantly finding him in between those lines, and as soon as they'd close, he'd release the next pass. And you have guys like Serginho Dest who love nothing more than to get wide on the overlap and then go 1v1 with the ball. And he was just combining with these guys over and over and over again. And it just reminded you of, like, there's just a smoothness to his play, right? That is just, it's really hard to describe, but when you see it, you're like, geez, like this guy he looks like he's playing at a different speed than everyone else.
Yeah, it's graceful. It's graceful. It's almost kind of like Zidane-esque, right? Just like it just seems effortless.
Everything around him seems so frenetic, and he's just like so casual, and not in a bad way, right? He's just in so much control of what's going on around him, and when he's on like that, it's a beautiful thing to watch. The issue with him is keeping him mentally plugged in like that, both for the game as well as, it sounds like, training and all those kinds of things, right? Like getting himself fit and all of that. It sounds like when he was at Dortmund, there were issues about him staying plugged in to his own fitness, right? And that has something to do with his injury issues and his availability issues and whatnot. So it's like all of this comes together, and we need him to be a professional just like all these other guys are working on being. I do think for some reason what Poch is doing is resonating with him. So hopefully that continues to be the case. But he was fantastic in this game against Paraguay. And his ability to float into spaces that are available is how he scores the goal. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is fucking terrible defending from Paraguay. Like, terrible. Like, there's 3 guys around him and no one marks him. But also, it's a wonderful sort of recycled set-piece play and a wonderful chipped-in ball from Max Arston, who I think, is probably going to start at left back in the World Cup. I mean, barring some sort of miraculous return by Jedi, right? Yeah. And I'm kind of okay with that. You know what I mean? The way that Arston's been playing, like, I don't see a problem. I'm not like concerned that that's the case. And yeah, Gio bangs it home and, celebrates in a very Gio way. Like,
he's still Gio. You can't take that away from him. He's gonna be Gio.
It's still gonna be about him. Yeah, a lot of the time. But I'm fine with it as long as he's playing for his team like that. And I did actually, again, when he came in against Uruguay in the last half hour of that game, he was actually very active in his pressure and much more active, in fact, than I saw him against Paraguay. So he's still playing as a teammate, which I think is important. But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely like take it on the chin here after going on a rant on him last week about he played fantastic and showed exactly why people are so excited about his inclusion in this team.
Well, he took advantage of the opportunity offered to him, right? And that's like the best he can do in that situation. And we've seen other players not do that when they're called into camp. And you have to be able to be prepared to take opportunities when they come to you. And so it's nice that he was able to do that, and against quality opposition. He's not out there, bagging goals versus, some minnow from CONCACAF, right? Like, he's out there with the big boys playing, and that might be an important motivating factor for him too, because he seems like the kind of person who needs an occasion to rise to, maybe. And I think that having Pochettino is as coach is good for a player like that, because Pochettino has cachet, right? Like, he's got it, and he's already proven that if you're not doing what he needs you to do, you won't play, or you won't even be on the roster, and it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your last name is. It doesn't matter what your number is. It doesn't matter what club you play for. If you're not up to snuff, then somebody else can take your place. And I think like that's a powerful motivating factor, right? And the fact that it does help that Pochettino is from outside of the U.S. soccer ecosystem, because Reyna's father and family are so intertwined with that. I think it helps to have an outside sort of objective eye on the thing. That probably lends itself to him too. And so hopefully this can be a catalyst to get for Gio to get his career back on track. At minimum, it would be really nice to have him healthy and fit and available to select for the World Cup, because he's got qualities that nobody else has, and he's got that high soccer IQ that you really can't teach, honestly.
Yeah, you combine his soccer IQ with his technical skill, and you can see why he was on such a upward trajectory when he was at Dortmund playing with Haaland and Jude Bellingham and those guys, and he was amongst those three as these transcendent players that were moving up. And obviously, it's just for him, it hasn't gone that way, but the skill is still there.
Yeah.
The question is the fitness, and in fairness, you could tell he wasn't fully fit in this match. His ability to get out of second gear is always going to be, I think, a problem, just with his hamstring issues in the past. He's always going to be a little bit hesitant, I think, to break into a full sprint at any point in time, which leads to him being late pressing, which causes the whole sequence with Paraguay scores on. But also, after about the 50th minute or so of this one,
he was cooked.
He was cooked, right? And I appreciate Poch leaving him out there, and he obviously gets the sort of assist on Balogun's goal, and is there in the right place. So there is value even when he's cooked to having him on the field, because when his teammates can create a good opportunity, and that was mostly Roldan and Luna getting back on the pressure and creating the turnover, that he's there and can help with Balogun, who it seems like he and Balogun have a fairly decent rapport. And I can understand why. Balogun can see his ability to get him the ball in scoring areas, and they have a little 1-2 kind of situation happen there, and they get the winning goal out of it. So there is still value even when he's cooked to having him out there, because he can provide that last pass when necessary. But he was cooked, and he even said after the game in the mix zone, he's like, I'm maybe 80-85% fit. Yeah. And so I think it was noteworthy that they got 75 minutes out of him and got another half hour out of him on Tuesday night, and hopefully he can go back to Mönchengladbach and get more minutes. And that was Pochettino's feedback. He was like, yeah, it was good. He played great. Now he has to go play more.
Yeah.
Because we need that version of him to be available, but he has to play for that to happen, right? And I think that, and that's the thing about Poch. He has no problem telling guys when they've done good, and obviously wanted to talk about how good his guys did on Tuesday night, and didn't feel like he was given the opportunity to at first. But also, he has no problem saying, hey, there's still things we have to work on, and he's going to still hold them accountable, and he's going to still keep that edge, right? Because we're not at the World Cup yet. The World Cup's not here yet. And so I think that, he's like, yes, it was good, but we still have things to work on. He always says that. We still have to work on this. Yes, it was good, but we need to work on this still. And so it's and it's not a matter of always keeping a man down. It's more yes, give them praise where it's due, but also let's continue to improve. If our goal is to be at our maximum potential at the World Cup, we've still got 7-8 months to get to that point, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's definitely happened. All right. I texted you this during the game, and I've listened to more people's takes on this game against Paraguay, and everybody thought Tessman was good in this game. And so I have to ask, is this a Drew problem? Do I have is my anti-Tessman bias so strong that I find everything wrong with him? Because I thought that he was okay in this one. I distinctly remember Adam Bell, and I know Bells doesn't rate Roldan, so this is probably part of it too. So there's this sort of back and forth between me actually liking Roldan and what he provides to this team, and thinking Tessman is overvalued because he's a big, strong guy who can hit a nice pass but often waits too long to make decisions. I think like maybe this is sort of the dichotomy of different, philosophies on players, but I thought Tessman was fine, but very up and down in this game. Had a couple nice plays, but also often tried to play guys into space and miss hit passes. Like there were a lot of them were overhit. And when I compare that to Sebastian Berhalter against Uruguay, constantly hitting switches to John Tolkien in space and then being on time over and over again. And I'm not I'm not saying Sebastian Berhalter is a better player than Tanner Tessman. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say, like, when I evaluate the performance, I'm looking at all of it, right? And I just felt like Tessman's distribution was not what I would expect out of someone who's supposed to be good at that.
Yeah, I think I see what your point of view is on him. I guess I don't really disagree. I do think that he covers a lot of ground. I think that's important. I think that his positioning, I think, is generally pretty good. He is definitely not as dynamic a passer as we would probably like to see in that position. But you're not going to have that, and he's not like a perfect player, right? Like he
Sure.
he's going to have limitations to his game. And I think that while you're right that I think that maybe that his physical presence maybe biases people towards him. I think there's a reason for that, right? I mean, like he is a big, strong physical presence in the midfield, and there are times when that is valuable.
And he used it against Paraguay several times.
Sure, he did. Yeah.
Shaded his butt, and he's very good. He does the Nemanja Radia where he shifts his butt around and like keeps guys off the ball when necessary.
Yep.
Like he's pretty good at that. Obviously, he has the very nice headed goal at the end against Uruguay on a really nice little chip ball from Reyna. But like I think that I had to like go back and look at some of the stuff to just like because I realize that some of this is just my personal bias. I don't think the guy, I just don't rate him as much as other people do. I think he is a good player.
We all have players like that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel totally completely justified, like vindicated that Eric Williams isn't anywhere near this roster, right? like I'm just like, suck it, haters.
Remember how high on him Matt Doyle was back in the day?
Dude, so many people were high on him. He is trash. He's not good.
Yeah,
Give me a break.
I'm not that hard on Tessman. I don't think he's trash or any of those things. I just think that there are other players that offer more to this team.
But who? Right? Who?
Yeah, it's a fair point. So, like, I guess my point is like, I think most people would suggest that if the World Cup were to happen today and everyone's healthy, that he should be in the double pivot next to Tyler Adams. And I just firmly disagree that should be the case. I think Roldan is a much better fit to go alongside Tyler Adams in that circumstance.
Yep.
I think Roldan is now granted he's a high floor low ceiling kind of player, like for sure, but I also think in an international game, especially where the intensity level is as high as it's going to be, and with Tyler Adams want to roam, you need a guy who can cover. And I don't know that Tanner reads those movements as well, especially if you put him on the left next to Tyler. I don't see it. I think he was better.
And I think that's like your point is an excellent point, right? It's not like these players aren't in a vacuum, right? You have when you consider who they're going to play with, that's like part of that's like part of the really important calculus that goes into whether they should start or not. And I totally agree with you. I would totally prefer Roldan with Adams in a double pivot for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned.
Talk about Roldan a little bit, because I know you were very impressed with his game against Paraguay.
I have never really rated Christian Roldan, especially when he played for Greg and especially when he was playing further up the field. But this
Well, and that's the problem with Roldan. Like he has all these priors that everyone thinks of him, which is him playing as a winger and attacking mid, and he's just not that player.
That's not at the international level. Like maybe he was an MLS level player.
He hasn't even been that for Seattle for years.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But at this point, like I think that his experience as an attacking minded player informs his ability to play in a double pivot really successfully. I think that he one of the things about a double pivot is that especially the way that the US men use it is that those two players selectively will either go forward, one goes forward, one stays and helps cover. And Roldan is really, really good at knowing when that needs to happen. And he does it at a super high level with Seattle and with Obed Vargas. And there are times when they're a double pivot, but they're a double like vertical pivot. And I saw some of that happen in the Paraguay game where he was the lower of the pivot and Tessman was more sort of in front, like literally directly in front of him, right? And just knowing how to use that space and how to use your body to cover that space and to snuff fires out before they happen. Like those are things that he has enough experience at both club and country level to really do those things. And I think that putting him in a double pivot, especially with a more active player, whether it's Adams or whether it's even Tessman, I think it allows him to kind of sit back and help make reads. And because he is played on attacking positions in the past, when it's his turn to move forward and take that space, and he has the possibility of being an additive component in attacks in a way that like Tyler Adams isn't, and probably honestly Tessman isn't either. So like when you consider like an all-around midfielder, and this like goes back to like the Argentina comparisons, because I texted you that like he really kind of reminds me of like a budget McAllister, right? In his ability to play, basically anywhere in the midfield and to do it at a very high level, and to do it, with absolute like skill and grit when necessary, but also to do it with a little bit of a attacking touch and flair, and in and around goal when he has to as well. It's like he has all of those things. Like he is like a complete midfielder, and like you said, maybe his ceiling isn't as high as some of these other players, but his floor is super high. And I really can't believe I'm like waxing positive about Christian Roldan, but I'm doing it because I think that I think he's trustworthy. I think he's earned the trust, and I would love it if he would start alongside Tyler Adams.
I think what we've seen in this version of Roldan versus maybe what we'd seen, going into 2022 World Cup, which he didn't. I don't think he played any minutes in the 2022 World Cup. Is that he's always been a smart soccer guy that like understood what to do and like could follow instruction and understood what the instructions were supposed to accomplish on the field. He's seen enough games now and seen enough good players that he's able to time his actions even better than ever before, right? So like his timing into his pressure, his timing into like understanding when to retreat into space, just like he reads the spaces.
It's knowing what's called for at
the right point in time
in the game state, right? Like he's that kind of player.
He makes the right decision a lot of the time, like a high percentage of the time, like a higher percentage in my opinion than most players on the team, and that's worthwhile. It really is, especially in a World Cup game where one mistake can end your tournament, right? Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, it's not like he never makes them, but I also think that he is unjustly blamed when mistakes happen, when he's like the fourth in a chain of mistakes that was created by something else, right? And he's scrambling to try to make an adjustment. If he's seeing what's happening ahead of time, he's rarely in the wrong place. Like very, very rarely in the wrong place. And that's useful. And I can't say that for Tanner Tessman. I can't say that for even Tyler Adams, to be completely honest. There are a lot of players on this team that often get caught out. And it's useful to have a guy that doesn't in those circumstances.
Yeah, being able to win and keep the trust of a coach, in that respect, I think is it's
I told you
deal.
the first time he got called up that he was going to be a Pochettino guy. Like Poch was going to love this fucking guy as soon as he got him in camp, and you can see that he is definitely high on the list of players that Pochettino appreciates. But I will also say there's no telling what form players are going to be in June. And who's going to be available and whatnot, and even who Pochettino is going to favor at that point in time. Like that's the other thing. I think you said earlier. It's like none of us can really predict what this is going to look like.
Yep.
It's May. I think what Poch has said is that he is going to make the 26-man roster before they go to camp. Like he said something like a lot like in the past. The notoriously Jurgen Klinsmann brought like Landon Donovan to camp and then cut him.
Said bye. Yeah.
And historically that's happened. They brought more than the allotted amount. We think it's going to be 26 of the World Cup, but more than the allotted amount, and then would cut whoever after the first week. It sounds like Poch doesn't want to do that. He's like, I think that's. It was weird. Like his commentary was like, I think that's cruel to bring guys to a World Cup camp and then to cut them a week later. He's like, I don't want to do that. It's like I'd rather bring the players I want to bring, and if an injury or something happens, I'll call someone up. But so sometime in May we're gonna find out what this is. But it's impossible to predict what that's gonna look like by now, right now. Yeah. What I can tell you is. There is a deep group of players that Poch feels comfortable calling from in order to fill out that roster, and as I noted earlier, that's a huge improvement over where this roster was even a year ago.
If you look even further than that, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and if you say, if you said that you're going to trot out, a lineup, let's just take the Paraguay lineup where you have Aronson starting, Roldan starting, Tessman starting, Scally starting, Max Arfsten starting. Matt
2 years ago you'd been like, who? Max who?
You'd have been like, what the fuck? We're trash.
Who the fuck is Max Arfsten? Right. That's what you'd be saying. But I mean that's true of a lot of World Cup rosters. A lot of guys like make it in late. I mean, remember in 2014, Aaron Johansson made the World Cup roster in Brazil and played minutes in that World Cup. Mm-hmm. Mix Diskerud was on that World Cup team. So yeah, I mean, now a lot of this is Jurgen Klinsmann related, but still, like there are a lot of things that can happen between now and a World Cup, and I think it's worth being aware of that. But also, like I said, I think what Poch has done is build up a pool of players which he can pull from and have some level of trust in their ability to execute. Okay, so. Roldan, we talked about. Brendo, we talked about a little bit, but I thought Brendo, I referenced this earlier, but I thought he and Roldan were definitely there to do all of the pressing, so Gio Reyna didn't really have to.
Yeah. That's a good job for Aronson, frankly. I mean,
and Roldan, to be completely honest. Like both of them, like I think they're very effective at it, and
no, my point with Aronson is that's about the only thing he can be trusted to do. Like, I mean, I'm
talk
serious.
About biases, man.
I'm serious. He's just not it. I'm sorry. Like, he's good at pressing. He's good at bringing energy, and there is value and use to that. But like I'll be
surprised if he's on the World Cup roster. Like, some people are going to be injured if he's on the World Cup roster. I feel like, right?
One would hope.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't hope anybody's injured, but one would hope that that's the only way
that he would be on the roster. I like him. I don't think he's a bad player. I don't know what he offers. To your point, like his offensive production in this game, where he had opportunities to be a little bit more impactful, and
Right.
in a lot of cases were just didn't come off, right? And that's just a common occurrence with him, and that's okay. Like we can be realistic about players' capabilities, but I think again, as I noted earlier, putting him and Roldan out there to provide pressure cover for a guy who couldn't press was smart. And it worked
It's smart
for the
coaching,
most part.
absolutely.
Outside of one
Absolutely.
play, outside of one play in the game, it worked. So, Serge was out there in both of these games, playing as sort of a like a
Mr. Vibes himself.
Mr. Vibes. He is vibes, man. Like Serge is vibes. I'm sorry, I don't know. Like
It's fun. He's
Serge,
fun.
Serge to me is like Darwin Nunez is to you. Like he's just like I just love that dumb motherfucker. I don't care. Like he's just out there
fun.
vibesing out, just doing dumb shit a lot of the time, trying to dribble guys he shouldn't. It's okay because it's also really fun when he pulls shit off. Like it really is fun. And there were a number of occurrences where he combined with Gio very effectively on that right side, and you could see like positive things going forward. I think he's nominally playing as a wide midfielder in these two games, right? Again, this kind of gets into the tactical nuance of what Poch is doing with this quote unquote back three, which is, excuse me, of course, it is a 3-2 build out shape, a 3-2-5 or sometimes a 2-2-6 sort of setup, but it is also in defense basically a 4-4-2. And so that quote unquote right center back becomes a right full back, and the quote unquote right wing back basically becomes a wide midfielder on that side with less defensive responsibility. And that's kind of what Serge has been doing in these matches. And I think that's the right way to use him, to be completely honest. I think Poch has even noted that he's not the best defender on earth. So it's good to have, but I do think it also means that he's starting a little further up the field, which means some of his abilities to help progress the ball are a little bit limited. And also he's going to do his Serge shit on the edge of the box, which is try to dribble dudes and try to sauce it up.
Do that in the attacking half of the field, especially in the attacking third. Like, fine, lose the ball. If you have to lose it, that's where you lose it, right?
I mean, I think the point I'm making is like on a team where they really don't have wingers, so they have to use wing backs ish to sort of create their
I could have sworn somebody on this podcast like a year ago was saying that the United States had no wingers and they should like fix that. They should play a system that didn't require wingers.
Yeah. It's weird, right? It's weird. And sometime at the halftime of the South Korea game, Poch realized that you were correct.
It's like, oh shit, I keep trying to play wingers and I don't have any.
Perhaps I should stop doing that. And it's worked. And I think that with that sort of hybrid responsibility, Serge fits into that pretty well. And Dest can do that. Obviously, Freeman can do it when they move him out there and put like Miles Robinson next to him and sort of that elbow back role. They can do a variety of things with it. And that's, again, goes back to the conversation that you and I had via text about the tactical fluidity of this team and the ability to put players in different positions and have them be able to execute them. I think Poch said after the Uruguay game how much he likes Freeman's ability to play like a number of roles, right? And so there's a level of, we're also seeing Poch sort of hone in on players that have some of that flexibility in themselves. Yeah, they can accomplish several roles, which is another thing that Roldan I think is effective.
You just think about that when you think about that wingback type role or hybrid wingback, wide midfielder, however you want to think of it. Think of how many players the United States has who can play that role. They have Dest, they have Freeman, they have Aronson can play that role. Probably Haji Wright could play that role. Tim Weah could definitely play that role.
That was the one I was going to get to. Is Weah? That's
Weston
probably
McKennie can play that role. Yeah,
he's used Yunus Musa in that role. Like
who?
Yeah, exactly. Well, hasn't been in the team for a while, but that was how he used him when he had him, right? Is kind of that sort of hybrid wide midfielder, right back kind of thing. So I think that you're seeing players who are flexible in their use and able to accomplish several roles on the team are the ones that are being prioritized, and that also leads to the tactical flexibility and the rotational flexibility of this team, which really is kind of a big deal. Let's get to the last couple things in the Paraguay game, and hopefully we can get the Uruguay game. We've covered a lot already, so hopefully it won't take so long to get through that. But Ricardo Pepi gets on in this one. Yikes, bro. Like, yikes. Like, this is a sitter of all sitters, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, right? Like, there's like defenders flying and goalkeepers flying, and he just melts down, man.
He takes a really bad touch. Like, I think he was trying to two-touch it, and the first touch was bad, and then it was just like over at that point.
This happens to a lot. You mentioned our my guy Darwin, right? This happens a lot to him. When you have too much time to think in the box, it all goes sideways.
That's true, because like Rico, I'm so used to him like getting on the end of a cross that's like him stretching out, and how the hell did he toe poke that perfectly into the box or perfectly into the corner of the goal? That's the only area that's open, and it's like, you're right. It's like, was there too much time for him to like think about this? And it's also a guy who's just getting back into PSV and is probably not operating in the most confidence, because I promise you, if that's Fowler and Balogun, that is buried first time. Like, there's no question about this. So, I mean, I'm just bummed for Rico, because I think he is probably the second best striker on the team when he's, when he's playing at his level. But it didn't look good.
So the one thing about it is, all you gotta do is be on the squad this summer, right? Like if he can be on the squad, like I have a hard time.
I'm worried. Like if you look at what Balogun provides, what Haji Wright provides, and what Patrick Ajiman provides, I don't think Pepi fits into that mold.
He doesn't, but like Ajiman's injured, right?
Yeah, he is injured right now, but I mean, he's likely not going to be injured in March or in May.
Yeah, but a lot can happen, right, between now and then. And I think my point was that Pepe's going to get chances, right? He'll get chances. He'll probably get some minutes in March, and if he can make it onto the roster, then he'll probably get chances during the World Cup, because this is not one of those cases where only the top 13 players are playing, right? Like, everybody's going to play. You kind of have that feeling is that the whole roster is going to be utilized in a way that we're probably not used to seeing for the U.S. men's specifically. So there's still a chance for him. I don't want to. I'm not writing him off by any means.
No. It was a bummer, because I was glad to see him back in the team, and then get a beautiful chance like that. I'm just used to him burying something like that, right? So it's just surprising to see him handle it that way. All right, last thing we'll talk about the Paraguay game is the little fracas at the end of the game. I don't know what any of this stuff means, honestly, other than we talked about the ex-dog factor of this team. Alex Freeman was having none of this. When Gomez tried to take the ball, he was like, no, fuck off, this is mine. And then Gomez goes to put him in a headlock, and who's there right away is Sebastian Berhalter. Yep. That man loves a scrap, dude. And we saw this in the Uruguay match, and we'll get to that here in a second. But the man he's got that dog factor in him, and that is the kind of shit that Poch loves. As much as he said after the match, well, it was dangerous and we shouldn't be fighting, blah, 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 blah. I think more of that was the fact that Poch got sent on his ass in this scrabble. Like, Poch tries to go in there to help, and he trips. He ends up on his back, and guys have to pick him up and whatnot. I think that,
but he is right. Like, you don't want to encourage that shit, because you don't want to wind up with players getting red cards unnecessarily and missing key matches.
In the post-game presser for Uruguay, he talked about it, and he was smiling how much he loved Alex. They were talking about Alex Freeman, and he talked about he was ready, though. He was ready against Paraguay. So, as much as he has to say that at the end of the match and be like, hey, we're not trying to get in fights, right? But it was
you want your players to stick up for themselves and for each other. Absolutely.
But also, in a friendly, there's no VAR, there's no nothing. So
a friendly. This is a friendly, like the Australia was a friendly, and those motherfuckers were going in.
I think is the point.
Come
right?
on,
it was reffed like a friendly.
It wasn't played like one. That's
no, but that's what I'm saying is crunching tackles were not really given anything specific, and there should have been about 4 guys red carded in this fight, and only one was, which is the second string goalkeeper for Paraguay going in, and the dude threw like a punch, so that was why he was sent off. I think that so I think Poch's point is valid, which is you do that shit in the World Cup. We're going to VAR and Zapruder filming all of this, and everybody's getting whatever they deserve, right? And so you don't want to, not only hurt your team in that match, but also in future matches if you're unavailable and whatnot. So there needs to be, you need to have a clearer head, certainly, but also you want to stand up for your teammates. And I think that, so like there's a balance to it. And so I think at a certain level he was happy that Alex Freeman stood up for himself in that circumstance. And that said Berhalter came in to support him. He got a little out of hand, but I don't think that was their doing. That was Paraguay's doing.
Absolutely.
So
I would love it if like the next evolution of the Argentinification of this team is for Poch to make this a team that instigates those things and doesn't suffer the repercussions. The team
getting better at the dark arts. Yeah. So they're getting better at participating in the dark arts, right. I think. And so let's get to the Uruguay match, because I think that was a fairly interesting part of the beginning of this match.
Yeah.
Uruguay was throwing tackles at the beginning of this match.
Yep.
They were ready. They came in with an intent to intimidate. And the U.S. was like, nah.
Yep.
Nah.
This is great.
We're going to get right back at you, right? And I do not think that the Uruguay players were prepared for that at all.
No, they seemed
surprised.
Surprised, yeah. They seemed taken aback.
And sort of like unsure of what to do next. Like, it's like when you hit the bully back.
Right.
And he's like, okay, here's your lunch money. Here's my lunch money, right? Like, that's kind of what happened afterward, right? Like, how much money would you like? Like, let me give it all back to you, right?
Yeah, they capitulated.
100%. And that is, I think, what Poch is trying to instill in these guys, is to be up for that battle, to participate in it as well, right? And I don't. They're not instigating, to your point. They're not the ones sort of creating it, but they're certainly willing to participate if that is what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And they will give it back to you as much as you will give it to them.
They're not backing down, and they're not like, oh, we're going to take the high road. We're better than this. No, they're not doing that either. They're like, oh, you want to go? Let's go.
And I think it's noteworthy that it was a bunch of MLS guys and ex-MLS guys doing this. The quote got passed around. I think Adam Booker was the one that sort of put it up. Like the whole thing where Facundo Torres was reportedly told by Bielsa if he wanted to play for Uruguay, he had to leave MLS, which he did, by the way, and went to Brazil because playing in MLS makes you lazy, supposedly. And I just thought it was sort of, poetic that all these MLS guys came in with all that dog in them. And I do think that this is also a valuable aspect of what Poch is trying to do with this team. There were healthy players that play in Europe that were not called into this team.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Poch, famously does not like talking about the players that were not called in, and that's kind of why he went on his rant at the end of the match in this one. But there is, I think, a message being sent regarding what his expectations are if you're going to be in camp. And it's a certain level of intensity, and it's a certain level of, and a certain willingness to play for each other and play for the badge. And something that can be said for these quote unquote MLS guys is that they are thirsty to be on the field.
Yeah.
They're hungry. They're thirsty. They want to be out there. They will do anything to make their coach understand how badly they want this. And there is value in that. And I think historically we found that the U.S. has needed that in order to be competitive because their technical skill wasn't of the level. And I'm not trying to compare Diego Luna to Rodrigo Bentancur, but I don't think the gap between Diego Luna and Rodrigo Bentancur is near as wide as it used to be.
No.
And so when Diego Luna can also come out there with that fucking dog in him at the same time, it closes the gap.
Yep.
And it creates a situation where you try to punch us in the mouth and we punch back, and you don't know what the fuck to do, and we're hanging 4 on you in the first half.
Yep. I mean, part of Bielsa's problem is that that thought process is a lot easier to justify like 10 years ago, and MLS is not the same league. And so the league that Sebastian Berhalter is playing in and excelling in is not the same league that was here a decade ago. And the demands placed on him to be a starting quality player in the league are a lot, I think, a lot more stringent than those he would have faced 10 years ago. And so, I. That's been part of, I think, the nice thing about watching MLS grow as a league is that the players from the United States who are playing in the league have had no choice but to up their game and to be better, and they are, and like that's what you're seeing, right? I mean, it's not there's not a huge drop off going to Berhalter. There's not a huge drop off going to Roldan, and in some cases those players might be preferable.
Right. And against the opponent that you're playing, perhaps you would choose some of these guys because you know what the game state is going to look like. And to your point, it's less about opponents being able to prepare for the U.S. and more about U.S. preparing for their opponents, right, and bringing out a tactical plan that is meant to take them apart. Yep. And that's what we saw against Uruguay. This was a team that was just so ready to take apart their man-marking scheme. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable, man.
The thing is, too, is these are guys who are like Berhalter is the guy on his team, right? Like he is.
Well, Thomas Muller and Brian White and those guys are the guy on his team, but
well, maybe at the beginning of the year, but so much of the chance creation for Vancouver.
He is the fulcrum. He is the fulcrum in their midfield. 100%.
That is,
I agree.
And that is a lot of responsibility, right? And he's like Aidan Morris doesn't have that responsibility for Middlesbrough,
well,
right?
And you saw it in Aidan Morris's performances in these 2 games,
right?
What that means, right?
Not great, not great. But I mean, that's sort of that narrative has been sort of kicking around, being the guy being the man for your team versus being just a cog in the machine of a European team.
I think some of it is the mentality too. Like Berhalter is a fucking guy that's super tuned in. Like this guy, like you can see he wears the intensity on his face. Mm-hmm. In these games, like you just see how dialed in he is at every moment. It must be exhausting. Like he must come out of the game and just be absolutely exhausted because he's just so intense and sort of dialed in. And he's got that very analytical mind of his dad. I read an article by Charlie Bowman. They talked about like how he's become so good at set pieces, and Vancouver uses TrackMan. And so TrackMan, if you're not familiar with it, is actually a golf ball tracking technology, right? So like if you ever watch a PGA Tour event and they do the little shot tracer, that's TrackMan. It's this radar screen that sort of sits behind it, and it's a 3-dimensional radar that it enables, like it actually interpolates what's going on. Like even though it sits behind the player, it actually interpolates what's going on at impact. Like it actually, with its 3D modeling, figure out exactly what the impact is happening on the ball, even though it's blocked by the club face, or in this case the foot. So they've been using TrackMan while he's practicing to understand exactly what foot contact does what to the ball movement and how he places it. And so he's able to sort of create this sort of repetitive architecture to be able to hit a shot or a set piece the same way every time. And that's very much a Triple G sort of thing, right? Like
yeah, absolutely.
That is 100% a Triple G sort of thing to be able to do that. But also he's got that fucking dog in him too, where he will just go in. Right, he will go in and try to earn stuff. He gets the red card against Bentancur.
Yep.
It's a little like foot over the ball kind of situation where it happens, but bro, I've been watching Tottenham for a while. I'm familiar with this tackle. I've seen it. It's late. Like if Bentancur's not late, this isn't a red card. But he is late, so he goes over the ball and hits Berhalter in the top of the shin, and it's sayonara, buddy. But I just think that he's just like Berhalter is a player that it's weird that I'm saying this, and because I would say that a month ago we would have thought that he was sort of out of this team.
Yeah.
And then I see a performance like this, dude. He was fucking fantastic in this game against Uruguay, yeah. And I thought way better than Tessmann was against Paraguay. And that's my bias aside. Like I went back and watched Tessmann, and I thought he was decent. But Berhalter's performance against Uruguay was significantly, and especially given his set piece delivery, right? The whole 1-2 Tony Kroos goal that he hits, dude. Like this is absurdly good. Like really, really high level. Yep. And then, of course, the set piece assist he gets, like he's a weapon in that regard, but he's also a really useful central midfielder as well.
Yeah,
it's not like Jack McGlynn, who has like one elite talent, which is just an absolutely beautiful left foot, right? Like that is Jack McGlynn's thing. Berhalter is useful in a lot more ways than that, right? And
he doesn't have McGlynn's physical limitations.
No.
That's the problem with McGlynn is, at the international level, like it's hard for a player of his physical limitations to be impactful. And Berhalter is not like he doesn't have those limitations. And so I think I'm more comfortable with him as an international player than I am with McGlynn.
Especially with his set piece delivery, man. Like, yeah. I think Joe said this on TSS today. It's just like, can we stop giving Christian Pulisic set pieces? Like, ever? Like, he should never. They have too many options that are really, really good on this team, right? Max Arston, Seb Berhalter, John Tolkien had some good left-footed deliveries in this game. Gio Reyna. Like, there's so many guys who are infinitely better than Pulisic.
I guarantee Christian Roldan is a better set piece taker than Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, I agree.
Guaranteed.
Just like someone needs to have the ability to just go to Christian and be like, bro, this isn't your thing, okay? Mm-hmm. Why don't you go and get in the goal scoring area where we're going to put the ball?
Yeah.
And focus
because that is your thing. Scoring goals, that's your thing. It should be. Do that.
I mean, this Poch had a little bit of a ghost at Steve Goff after this one when he asked about whether this was a design set piece when Berhalter scored. And this was after he had already gone. We're going to get into this.
What did he say? I didn't hear it. What did he say?
I want to get the quote exact. I'm going to have to say it just like, I don't want to get the quote exact, so let me get the quote because we're going to get to this conversation about how the press conference went. But anyway, the like Berhalter is elite at set piece delivery. Like I don't think that's even a question, right? And so when you add that to his when he has a game like this in central midfield as well, on top of that, like it's just. How do you leave this guy off the World Cup roster? Like, honestly,
I think that's a good point, and it gets. It's
one game. Let's be clear, it's one game, but still.
But it does get to the sort of squad building aspect of putting together a World Cup roster, and I think that it's just becoming clearer and clearer that it's not always necessarily just like your most skilled players, right? It's not just your quote unquote best players. It's about building a team that is diverse in the way that they can play and varied in the kinds of skills that they have. And so, a big part of the reason that the U.S. Was so successful in this window was because of set pieces, and that is an equalizer, right? That's a way for teams that have maybe less technical skill, maybe less high-end talent. That's a way for those teams to be competitive against higher level teams. And so, absolutely, the United States should be considering set pieces as a major component of their strategy going into the World Cup. And if that's the case, then you have to play to that, and that means that you have to include, people who are good at set piece delivery on your squad, as well as finishers, right? So that's that speaks, like the finishing thing speaks to Weston McKennie's ability to finish set pieces, and the delivery thing speaks to, you know, Sebastian Berhalter and his ability to
Reyna,
right, all those players,
all these guys, yeah,
right, absolutely. So
well, and it's not, and I want to be I don't think that either one of us is suggesting that they should go Minnesota United and play for set pieces, but it's more about being able to maximize them when you have them and getting value out of them, especially when the margins are so fine as they are in these international tournaments, right? Like sometimes that is the difference. It's not like, as much as we feel good about how the U.S. men's national team beat Uruguay in this match, the XG was like 1.4 to 0.8. It's not like some sort of absolute domination. It felt that way on the field, and I do think that that's where XG doesn't give you the full picture of like what the game was like. It just gives you a picture of what the shots were. And the U.S. scored their shots, as Pat Noonan would say, score your fucking goals. And the U.S. did that, right? But that is also on multiple set pieces and whatnot, like what being good at those moments can mean for you. And, you know, Gio Reyna scores on a recycled set piece to open up the scoring against Paraguay. They recycled set pieces when Tanner Tessman scores. There's like 3 goals, I think, in the Paraguay game that are off set pieces or recycled set pieces. So 4 of the 7 goals scored in this window were set piece related. And I think that's noteworthy. And I think it shows, first of all, the fact that the team is drilling them and working on them and trying to have patterns in where they can be successful, but
using
also
them as part of a strategy too.
Yeah, exactly, to score goals.
They're not just out there YOLO eating it into the box, and
which really did feel like a little bit what the former strategy was.
Yes.
And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So that's a positive. Sorry, I found the quote when it comes to the set piece. Steve Goff asked if that was something they practice, and Poch said he was fairly exasperated at this point after the whole conversation about regulars, and he says, "No, it happened on accident."
Just a sarcastic non-answer. Yeah. I don't want to play like Minnesota United, but man, if we could make a semifinal with, you know, Sebastian Berhalter, you know, kicking the ball off of Walker Zimmerman's head, I would put both of those in the starting lineup and not take them out. Like, seriously. Like,
I mean, I don't think it needs to be one or the other. Right, like I think
I agree. I was exaggerating to make a point, but yeah.
I think what Poch is doing is creating an environment where this team is like. So you noted this earlier when you talked about the Uruguay game. Their defensive shape was fucking fantastic in this game.
Yeah, it really
outside of like from minute 38 to minute 45 plus 3, right? Where they kind of lost it a little bit and got a little high on their own supply, which happens sometimes. You go 4-0 against Uruguay.
You're like, holy shit, are we good?
We're going to win the World Cup.
They were feeling the same as the fans. They were like, what is this real?
What is happening? Bro, they were moving the ball so well. They were like repressing, winning the ball, and moving the ball in Uruguay's half so well. And like around the half-hour mark, like the 35-minute mark, you heard the crowd just go, huh? Ooh, huh? And there was like, and it was almost like the U.S. version of Olays happening in like the 35th minute of the match. And like, I'm just like, is this who we are now? I guess it is. But outside of that sequence in that match, their defensive shape was really solid. And so you can still be an aggressive team, an aggressive pressing team, one that counter presses and wins the ball back well and plays fun soccer in the attacking third with solid defensive shape that also is good at set pieces, right? Like all of those things can happen at the same time. It's not a zero-sum game.
That's the dream, man.
It is the dream. And I think Kieran Doyle said this. He's a big Chelsea fan, so he talks about Chelsea a lot on social media. But he said he's like, I think he's made a comment as like, while I wasn't the biggest proponent of Poch's time at Chelsea, when his system comes off, it's fucking beautiful, man. Like when you see it, when it actually comes off in its entirety, it is unbelievably fun. And that's what we saw against Uruguay. is like every idea that Mauricio Pochettino has for how soccer should be played, like sort of coalescing at one time, and it's enjoyable.
Yeah,
It's
it
enjoyable when
is.
it happens. Now comes the wet blanket. We have been waxing poetically about how this window has gone for an hour and 24 minutes at this point. I think it's worthwhile to note that this is 2 matches in one window against, in quote unquote friendlies that don't necessarily matter. And so it's worthwhile to note that these are one-off performances that you cannot necessarily predict in 4 months are going to be the same, right? Like that's the next time this team plays together is in March. So we probably should have some level of conservatism as to how we project this forward. And recognize that these performances were great, but as Pochettino would himself say, there are things we need to improve on. And there were moments in these games that were not ideal.
Yeah.
Especially that sequence at the end of the first half against Uruguay. If they, it's good those goals went in, but what if only one went in? Now it's 1-1 at halftime. What are you doing?
Yep.
Right? So I think that, that's just stuff to be, thoughtful about and continuing to keep the team dialed in and continuing to get them, executing the game plan effectively and continuing to find players in form and hungry to do those things. I think that that's something that Poch has done with the constant rotation is all these guys really, truly, and they do, I think it's fair. They all believe they have a shot to play in the World Cup for this team. And they do. They literally do.
Yep.
And it's really going to be on who's in the best form at that point in time and who is able to execute the goals of the coaching staff at that time and meet the needs of the opponents that they're going to be facing. So they'll have in a couple weeks, we'll have the draw and kind of know what the group stage looks like, which will, I'm sure, have some impact on how Pochettino builds his roster for those matches as well. And it will be, all of those players will have to figure out how they best put themselves in position to get on that roster. And I think just continuing to have that hunger to do that is important because, yes, this has been great. The last 3 windows outside of the first half versus South Korea have been very good. It's only 6 games. We've seen Sporting Kansas City go on a good 6-game run. Shit, they did it this season. I think I think this is a different situation, right? I think we're seeing something sort of come together in a certain way, but I also think it's fair to be at least a little bit, have a little bit of caution in how you look at this. Like I said, they only beat Uruguay 1.4 to 0.8 in XG in this game. They didn't, as much as it felt like a comprehensive domination. It wasn't necessarily that. But they also beat Paraguay in a similar margin in XG in the first game, and they have been the better team on the field in several games in a row now, which I think is worth noting. But it's not at the level of what the end result I think was in this game. I think just a lot of things went well in this one.
So we've talked a lot about like ceilings and floors in this podcast, but I think that I think that the ceiling of this team is probably hasn't changed at all, right? To a large degree, the ceiling of your team at the World Cup is dependent upon the talent of the players that you have in your pool, and that hasn't changed, right? I think the floor has changed quite a bit, and I think that
just compare Switzerland to now, right? Like
right,
the floor is significantly different.
And I think that vibes matter, man. And I feel a lot better about this team right now than I did, 6 months ago. And I think most people do, and they should, because going into a World Cup as a host country and your team is playing like shit, that's not like a great feeling, and so we have a little bit of hope now. We have a little bit of positive momentum, and let's go. Let's build on that.
I think a few things about how Poch has gone about this that I think have been very noteworthy. One of them is continuing to continuing to push the players to follow the principles that they have over and over and over, no matter what has gone on the field and whatever the results were. And Poch has been notorious about saying this. He even said it in this game against Uruguay. The result is not what we're after. It's the process. It's us getting to a certain point. So he's continued to be consistent in saying, this is what we're trying to do. Keep doing this. You're going to get better at it the more you do it. We're going to get to the place where we're at our highest effectiveness. And so he has continued to push that. But I think what's interesting about what they're doing is a little less tactically rigid, right? And that goes back to a conversation you and I were having earlier. There's a little bit more fluidity to it. There's a little bit more problem solving that's happening in the moment. Mark McKenzie actually said this in an interview, that they are enabling us to solve problems on our own. It's more about like what you look for in a certain circumstance to be able to make the next decision and solve those problems on your own. And I think that that's noteworthy, right? Because it gets out of this very specific tactical rigidity of a way that you are supposed to progress the ball. And it's more into like, what is happening on the field? How do I help negate that? Right?
Yeah. How do we solve that problem? How do you work together as a team to solve the problem
that's really important. The work together as a team part is really important, because it's not just the guy with the ball in his foot making a decision which person he passes to.
Yep.
It is his teammates shading into spaces to give him options that help solve the problems that exist. Both of those things are happening at the same time. And it's honestly complicated to pull that shit off with a national team.
It's even with a club team, it's super complicated. It's difficult to do.
Extremely complicated. And I think that's why it failed so spectacularly at first.
Yeah.
And it's taken time for them to get to the place. But now we are seeing that problem solving happen on the field. And part of it is related to part of the disconnect with it is related to how many players have come through camps and how many players he's trying to sort of instruct and indoctrinate into the mindset. The other part of it is just it's hard. Shit's hard, man.
Yeah,
it's not simple. It's not easy, and it requires sort of instructing and making players better. And I do think that a lot of these players are going to benefit a lot from playing for Poch in this in this environment, and are probably going to get bigger moves to Europe and whatnot. Like, if Alex Freeman's playing for Orlando next season, I'm going to be pretty surprised, honestly. And I think that's true of several players. I think Sebastian Berhalter is probably going to have some people looking at him. I think that there are a lot of potential, positives for these players. You can see them getting better, not just for their national team, but also for their club team.
Yep.
As being a part of this, and playing for a coach that just knows how to instruct and build this into players. And he's doing it in his own way. Like a lot of the conversation, and I've even participated in it over the last year, has been around like building a steady sort of starting 11 and core group that you can count on. And Poch is not doing that. He's bringing as many people in as he can. And
his core group is like 20 guys. Like he is doing that. It's just expanded, right?
Right. But he's building cohesion in his own way, right? Like he is trying to create an environment where I could call any 26 of these 70 guys into camp.
Yep.
And they're all going to be in on what we're doing as soon as they show up.
Yep.
And I think that is sort of antithetical to what a lot of people thought he should be doing. Yeah. And I understand why, right? Like there's 2 games against Portugal and Brazil in March, and then there's 2 games in June. One's against Germany in Chicago, and they haven't finalized the other game, mainly because there's all kinds of FIFA rules about who you can play on what field, because it's right before a World Cup. You can't be in your group and whatnot. I think they feel fairly confident that Germany won't be in their group because Germany will be in pot 1, but so they can schedule that one. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff on that pre-World Cup window about who can play where. But there aren't a ton of games left to be able to suss this out. And so I understand where like some folks are like, hey, we need to build these connections. We need to build this cohesion, this these partnerships and whatnot. And Poch has done it more based on vibes, to be completely honest. It's more of like when you're in camp, you're a part of this group and we're all here together and we're all playing for each other. It's a little different than I think what we had become used to, especially with Berhalter.
Yeah.
Or what you would expect to be kind of the process. And it's created a 26-man group at every camp that is 100% together. Like when Gio scored that goal, like you saw everybody coming over to him and all participating with him, even when he's sort of pointing at his number and saying, I told you, or whatever he said in the camera. Everyone's there with him, right? And that sort of camaraderie, that is what a national team should be.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not sure this team had that before. I don't even think they had it in March.
The only time they ever showed anything like that is when they played Mexico. That was it. Like they looked great in those games, and in every other game they kind of looked like gas. So,
and they're probably not going to play Mexico at the World Cup. Maybe they will in one of these games, but they're definitely not going to be in the group with them. So they need to find a way to build that level of intensity and camaraderie and playing for each other outside of playing Mexico. And I think that is what Poch has created. And he has created this environment where he can have any of these players in and they can all achieve it. And that's where we get to this press conference post Uruguay where Poch got a little truculent, got a little frustrated. So I'm going to break this down a little bit. I don't know how big of a deal this is. I just found it interesting mainly because a lot of reporters got mad about this. Well, mad is maybe the wrong way. A lot of reporters were not happy or felt like it was unnecessary for Poch to do what he did in this circumstance. And at some level, I can sort of understand, yeah, it probably was unnecessary. I agree it was unnecessary. But I also think it speaks to a mindset he has and what he is trying to achieve. And also a reminder, press conferences are not for you. We've talked about this over and over and over. Press conferences are largely for the coach to speak to the players.
Yeah.
Right? And Doug McIntyre led out. And I'm going to frame this a little bit too, because Doug McIntyre's been on Scuffed a couple times. And I'm not sure if it was him exactly that said this, but I know he's alluded to this. It may have been him or Henry Bushnell. I'm not sure which one actually said this, but I know they both alluded to it. The fact that in pressers, Poch is not a fan of talking about guys who aren't at camp.
Yeah.
Right? He wants you to focus on the guys that are there. He wants to talk about the guys that are there and what they're doing. And I understand that, right? Like, if I didn't call a guy in, so be it. We're talking about the guys that are here. Yeah. We're talking about what we're going to try to achieve with who's here. So Doug led off the presser with a question about, how, and he did try to frame it in a positive way. It's like I think it was something along the lines of like how good, it must feel good to get this type of performance without a lot of the regulars in camp. And Poch is just like, immediately, he's like, I don't like this. I don't like this framing. I think he even said, I watched the video, so I wanted to, Alex Abnos, I made some comments about this on Blue Sky where I actually thought this was good. Like I thought it was good for him standing up for his players and also showing what he thinks and what he cares about. It wasn't full Gennaro Gattuso, like sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. Like it wasn't that level of sort of entertaining, but it was still entertaining, right? And I appreciate him like being himself in these moments. And it's way better than the Peter Vermees bullshit that we'd see in press conferences, right? Or Berhalter, to be completely honest. But he said, he's like, I don't like this. Like, you guys have been around me long enough to know that I don't like that phrasing. It's like, I don't know what you mean by regulars. And Paul Tenorio asked the next question, and he ended up like answering. He ended up like going into a longer answer that was not really combative in any way or whatever. But he kind of finished the answer about how he was feeling about how the players did. And then Paul Tenorio asked a question, and I do believe Paul caught some strays here. But Paul asked, he led off the question by saying, "I know you don't want to talk about regulars." But more about like what it feels like to, perform this well, with this group of players. I think he specifically asked is like, I know you don't want to talk about regulars, but more like my question is more about being able to run with a completely different lineup game to game and get positive performances out of both, which I think is a completely fair question.
Sure.
And not even getting it, but Paul started it with the whole regulars word. And Poch just was like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, he just was so mad. Michael Cameron's sitting next to him. Michael Cameron's the communications guy for the U.S. Soccer. He's been there forever. And he turns to cameraman and he's like, I don't understand the first part of this question. And cameraman's like, no, he's like asking about, like, you know, being able to get such good performances out of while rotating the roster pretty significantly. And Paul specifically talked about the Switzerland game. He's like, in June, when you made this type of switch at Switzerland, you guys did have, you know, struggle to achieve the ideas that you were trying to accomplish. Whereas, you know, in this game, you make a very similar, like, significant starting lineup change and are able to get the performance that you're looking for. And cameraman sort of said that. He's like, no, but he said something at the beginning. And Paul even started speaking to him in Spanish, trying to clarify what he meant about regulars. And it was off. It was off the rails at that point. Poch got so mad. He was so frustrated. And that's when Steve Goff gets another stray asking about the set piece. It's like, no, it happened by accident. But because he was just so, like, turned off at that point.
Yeah.
And just so upset. Because he wanted the team he selected and brought into this camp just beat Uruguay 5-1.
Yeah.
And we're leading with, and I understand at some level, like, why he's frustrated.
I totally get it. Absolutely.
I don't think any of the questions were unfair. I think there is some lost in translation happening.
Sure.
An Argentinian speaking English as a second language, and there's just that word, like, it just caught him off. And once he heard it a second time, it was on, right? He even said, he's like, maybe I'm tired, I don't know, but I'm just like, I'm not having this. He said, he's like, maybe I need to leave when we restart the press conference. Like, he said that. He was like, it was obvious that he understood that he was really grumpy about this, and maybe he didn't need to be. But also, it just shows, like, how much this shit means to him. Mm-hmm. And also, something that Poch has always had for him, Southampton, Tottenham. I don't know that he was ever at Chelsea or PSG long enough for this to happen, but definitely at the first two clubs. He's an exacting coach that, like, requires excellence from his players and will beat the shit out of them to get it from them. Like, honestly, he's not an easy coach to play for. But all those guys to a man would run through a fucking wall for him.
Yeah.
And part of it is because he will, like, stand in front of them at any point in time publicly, right? And so when he hears that stuff, he immediately gets extremely defensive, right? And he wants to protect his players who he thought played fantastically in this game. And we weren't talking about that. We're talking about the fact that they weren't the regulars, right? And I don't think that's exactly what those questions were meant to be, but that's what he heard, and so that's how he reacted the way he did. I don't know what you think about all this, but I thought it was fascinating.
I mean, I think it's hilarious. I think, you know, just in general, there's nothing. There are a few things more delicious to me than any reporters just getting butthurt about people not responding the way
to
they
be
want
fair
to the answers.
I don't think Doug McIntyre or Paul Tenorio have been outwardly butthurt about this. It was
well, that's good. That's it. Well, because both
it
those
was more
guys
their cohort that
right.
That
both those guys are pros, right? Yeah. Everybody else is like, oh, whoa.
Doug sort of alluded to it in his article, but it wasn't like it was a small shot. It wasn't like, oh, I'm mad about this, right? And I don't think
they know they deal with coaches. Like coaches are like this, and I think it's entertaining and it's fine. And you know, the thing is your point is exactly right. Like this isn't a press conference for us. You imagine that you are a player who's listening to your coach say these things in the press conference, and you're like, hell yeah. Well,
that's what Poch said. He's like,
we just beat the fuck out of Uruguay. Give me a break.
And that's what Poch said. He's like, it's disrespectful to these players to be talking about who's not here. And I understand his sentiment. I really do. I think everybody could probably do it a little bit better, right? But I will also say, and this is what I did say on Blue Sky, this is so much better than the random bullshit we get from coaches in press conferences, man. Poch, say your shit, man. Whatever. Yep. Like, I don't think anything he did was that far out of bounds. I don't care what any of the reporters say.
No.
Like, bro, you're a fucking reporter. You're going to deal
You're a professional. Get it.
You're a professional.
Get with it.
Sometimes a coach is going to be grumpy.
You're not up there interviewing Bobby Knight. Give me a fucking break, dude. Come on.
Yeah, no one's throwing a chair at you. But seriously, like, this is part of the job. You deal with these. You deal with coaches sometimes who are not going to agree with the way you go about doing things, and so be it. I think Jurgen Klopp can be a whiny bitch in a press conference sometimes. That's okay. Yep. It's part of dealing with being in front of some of these. These guys have big egos too, right? And it's just part of it. I don't think, like I said, I don't think Poch needed to react the way he did, but I really don't. I'm not that worried about it either.
Yeah, I don't begrudge him at all.
Yeah, it's fine. And it shows how much he cares about what they're doing, and it shows how much he cares about these guys that he's coaching. And that is the most important thing to me when it comes to any of this. I'm sure his wife's going to get mad at him again, and he's going to, the next time we see him in a press conference, he's like, my wife told me not to be so grumpy with you guys. And it's fine. It's fine. It's all part of the machismo, the Pochismo. It is the Pochismo. There you go. The Pochismo. I think Charlie Boehm actually coined that one, by the way.
Good for him. That's a good one.
It is a really good one. So, anybody in this camp that really, like, sort of elevated, in your opinion, when it comes to the World Cup rosters?
The obvious choices are Reyna, who he was at 0 or less than 0 at the beginning, so the only place to go was up, and he did a good job. So Reyna,
he's gone from less than 0 to, like,
a lot.
Like, if he's healthy, you probably can't leave him off.
Yep. So Reyna and Berhalter and Freeman, those guys.
It's funny. It's funny that you said them in that order, Reyna and Berhalter.
Yeah. They will be linked together forever.
We can't get away from this shit, man. It did seem like Seb and Gio were chill with each other in this camp, which is good. Yeah. There was, I mean, not to get too far down this road, but I mean, there was an Athletic interview with Seb earlier this year where he said he had not spoken to Gio since the incident.
Right.
And we're talking about guys who talk to each other like daily.
Right.
Like, I mean, obviously some bridges need to be mended there, but it seems like I don't think these guys are ever going to be bros again. Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but it seems like, at least from being cool with each other as teammates and whatnot, that seems to have passed. And shit, we've been through a lot worse with Eric Winalda and was it John O'Brien? So, I mean, I think
we're not at that level yet. Not yet. So those three players, like the, I think that it's clear that the preferred central midfielders from this group are Tessman and Roldan. I think Aiden Morris can stay home. It's fine. If he's included because somebody's injured, it's not the end of the world. But like he was, I think noticeably not at the same level of those other two. I think it's notable that without Chris Richards, there wasn't any calamities defensively. And so I think
I actually thought Austin Trusty played pretty good against Uruguay, which I didn't have any expectations for whatsoever.
Mackenzie and Trusty both played okay.
Mackenzie was okay, but Trusty was in that sort of whole 1-2 sequence that allowed Alex Freeman to literally dribble both Ugarte and Bentancur before scoring a goal, which I was like, well,
that's not a fullback doing that. What the fuck?
On the left side, by the way, he's a right.
Mark McKenzie didn't look bad either. So
he was okay. He was okay. He wasn't like
they weren't calamitous, right? Like we would expect them, like given the narrative around them, we would expect them like, oh shit, like
I think a lot of that had to do with the defensive shape in front of them.
Totally agree, completely agree. But that's proof, that's proof of the idea that you can help cover up some of those weaknesses with the right
team defense is a thing.
It
That's the
is.
thing.
Absolutely.
We've been saying over and over, Sporting Kansas City's problems. I mean, they do exist at center back,
Yeah.
but their team defense is really their problem.
Atrocious.
It's really bad.
Why do you have to sour the conversation? We're like on a.
Well, no, but
why do you
got
to bring Sporting Kansas City into this?
It's more to highlight.
This is a Sporting Kansas City podcast, but I was enjoying not talking about Sporting Kansas City.
We've got an hour and 48 minutes talking about the U.S. men's national team, and it's mainly
ridiculous.
because I think both of us have been so deprived of fun, interesting soccer for so long that we're just yeah.
Amen.
Diarrhea of the mouth when it comes to being able to discuss good stuff. Yeah. I was only highlighting that to highlight how good the team defense was for the U.S. men's national team in this game, which I think was fairly significant. I think you're right. I think Freeman for sure. Freeman's got to be in the World Cup camp unless something, injuries or all those kinds of things can happen. But I mean, Freeman for sure. I think when it comes to central midfield, if you say it's Adams, Tessman, Roldan, and Berhalter, like who's knocking one of those guys out of those positions? Like who would you like if I
Johnny
said those
Soccer,
four
baby.
names? Yeah, I mean,
No
who
one.
else is Yunus Musa? No. Johnny Soccer? No, not right now. Like at this point, those are the four central midfielders that you would take if the World Cup started today. So I think I'm with you on all of that. I would like to see somebody stand out at center back. I know you said that McKenzie and Trusty were not calamitous in this game, but that not calamitous is not what I'm looking for.
I totally agree. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I think we should be very happy with.
What do you think about Scally at sort of that elbow back, sort of right center back?
I really like Scally. Whatever. Okay.
I thought he was fine.
He'll probably.
Some people thought he was really good against Paraguay.
I know he wasn't. He wasn't really good.
He got lost on the goal. I do think some of that's Miles Robinson not keeping the line high.
Sure.
But yeah,
none of the defenders were really good. Sorry, they weren't.
They just don't have many good. They don't have any good.
They don't, and that's like it's not the end of the world, but it is.
Well, I mean, you do have to defend in soccer.
You do. But as you pointed out, team defense is more important than individual quality in that respect. So it's something that can be compensated for to some degree.
Sure. Okay, we're gonna rifle through some of these because we've been at this for a minute. We do need to talk about Vlatko stepping down. Or stepping back.
He's stepping up, man. Come on, he's like in charge of a global.
He's becoming the Jurgen Klopp of the Casey Curran Empire, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what he's
doing.
Good
on him.
Yeah. This sort of caught all of us by surprise, right? I texted you about it when I heard about it, and it was right before this ESPN article was going up. That Vlatko is, he's held the title of sporting director and head coach since he's joined the club, but they've still had a GM, Caitlin Carducci, in this circumstance, sort of managing the cap and the contract negotiations and all that stuff. And Vlatko's more kind of at a high level, managing the strategy from a sporting perspective, not too dissimilar to what Berhalter's doing with the Fire, where he's got guys that are like managing a lot of the roster stuff, but he still oversees it.
All right.
But Vlatko is stepping back from coaching. He is no longer going to be the head coach. Well, when they hire someone, I guess he's quote unquote still the head coach until they hire a new head coach. But he will be stepping back from those responsibilities. It sounds like his assistants are probably the number one and number two candidates to take over for him. But they're going to go through a coaching search, of which Vlatko, I guess, is part of the decision making panel that will decide who that coach is, but he is not the only one. Obviously, Chris and Angie Long will be a part of that. And it sounds like maybe the new GM, Ryan Dell, will also be a part of that. Dell had been with Racing Louisville as their GM before joining the Current and being a soccer operations lead, which my understanding was that soccer operations was related to a lot of the administrative things related to soccer operations for running the team and whatnot, but it also included all kinds of administrative stuff, like from handling flights to the logistics of having equipment to like all of that kind of stuff fell under soccer operations and was under his purview. I'm not saying he was personally doing all those things. I'm saying that was under his responsibility. Now he is going to have that as well as salary cap, player contracts, all that stuff. And that will all be under his purview. I'm sure there will be people that work for him as well that help facilitate all of those roles. But it was a role that he held at Louisville. He was actually responsible for hiring Bev Yanez, who is now the NWSL Coach of the Year. Okay. Congratulations, Bev Yanez. She's a great coach who deserves all the plaudits in the world. I don't think she was the best coach in the NWSL this year. Anyway, so Vlatko is going to be stepping back, and Dell is going to be taking on those GM roles, and they're going to, between him and Ryan Dell and ownership and whoever else is involved, hire a new coach. We went a little bit deep last week talking about how we'd like Vlatko to evolve as a coach. Well, I guess we don't have to worry about that now because they're going to be bringing someone else in.
That's the Galaxy Brain evolution, is he's just going to hire somebody else and, pull the puppet strings that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the right thing for him to do. Like I said, it's a very Jurgen Klopp-ish sort of step back, and the Longs obviously have a goal of building a women's professional soccer consortium similar to what Michelle Kang has and what Manchester City has on the men's side and whatnot, and Blueco and all that stuff like that. They have goals to get to that level, and it looks like Vlatko's gonna, my understanding is the Longs very much appreciate Vlatko's soccer mind and his understanding of players and recruiting and what it takes to build a good team. And so they very much want his input to help build out this empire that I think they're trying to build. And I think it's a good thing for him. They very clearly made it out in the release to be a promotion, right? He's going from sporting director to global sporting director. So it sounds to me like he got a little bit of a bag in the process of stepping back from coaching. And it also sounds like something they've been discussing for quite a while. So Vlatko's been coaching for a long time. I think it's fine for him to not be in that that sort of that sphere anymore, where I mean, candidly, NWSL awards were today. Bev Yanez wins Coach of the Year over him. There were a lot of people celebrating that over the fact that he should not have gotten it. And I think that there's a lot of scars related to his time as a women's national team coach. And a lot of people have trouble overlooking that. And that's okay. It's probably good for him just to get out of that sort of feedback loop and into something where he can just focus on things that he's good at and run them. And if that's good for him, I'm great about it. I'm great with it. It does make me wonder why the hell he was doing all this posturing when Vermees got fired about him being interviewed for that job.
Who knows?
Coaches he was never interviewed, by the way.
Yeah.
And I've strongly been told he was never approached, even though he says that he was.
Interesting.
But anyway, it does. I do remember all that and go, why were we doing all this at the beginning of the year if you were planning on stepping back?
Oh, maybe to parlay that into a being in charge of a global soccer consortium.
It does seem like that was the first step in him sort of improving his position with the Longs, which is fine. Hey, work your shit, man. Get your money.
Amen.
The Longs ain't gonna miss it. I promise.
They are not. They'll be okay.
They'll do fine. So it'll be interesting to see who ends up running the show. I do feel good about the fact that Vlatko's involved in the decision-making process. I think that they will. I agree. Although I think he's going to push hard for Freya or Milan to be the new coach, but I don't know. I don't know that Freya was ever that good as an NWSL coach. She was fine, I guess. But, I mean, at Angel City, Angel City's a mess. So I have to try not to, hold that against her. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, moving on. Last couple things in NWS or in MLS. The schedule has been approved. We're going to fall-spring. It starts in summer of 2027. We'll probably get into this in more detail later, so I'm not going to get into too much detail about it now. There will be a mini season at the beginning of 2027, a 14-game mini season. Well, you knew this was going to happen. Why are you laughing?
It's just the funniest thing ever. I don't know. It's just hilarious to me.
A mini season is hilarious to you?
It is. It's just impossible. it's just impossible to take seriously. That's
I
all.
mean, they're handing out an MLS Cup for it.
Sure they are.
They are.
I know. Just put the asterisks and move on. Like, whatever.
Paint the wall with an asterisk.
Yeah, if that's
Hey, look,
what it is.
Those trophies count in the cabinet just the same. Anyway,
Okay.
So that is going to happen. Maybe we'll spend some more time on that later, but we're deep into this podcast at this point. The other notable thing is it sounds like Don Garber, on the heels of getting this schedule approved, as well as amending the Apple TV deal. So it sounds like the Apple TV deal now will only go through 2029, but has also been improved as far as the payment structure. And the other big thing on it, it is no longer in its separate deal of MLS Season Pass. So if you are an Apple TV subscriber, you will get MLS games. It's no longer this separate package you have to buy with an Apple TV, which I do think is actually valuable, because I do think that on the sports side, Apple is going to gain a bunch of subscribers for F1. So they won the F1 TV contract that will start in 2026. Those races will also be on regular Apple TV. So if you're an Apple TV subscriber, or what they used to call Apple TV Plus, but is now called just Apple TV, if you're an Apple TV subscriber, you will get both MLS games and F1. If you are a season ticket member, you will get all of that for free. You will get a 1-year Apple TV subscription for free. So not only will you get F1 and MLS, you'll also get, Ted Lasso and Slow Horses and Silo and The Morning Show and a variety of other. Shrinking is a good show that I actually really enjoy on Apple TV. So there are a number of actually really good or really good pieces of content on the Apple TV app that honestly not a lot of people watch that don't have it, because it's not very well marketed at all.
Yeah.
Because Apple's just not very good at marketing. They just like, we have cool shit, you'll buy it, right? Anyway. Doesn't really work on TV.
People in the Apple ecosystem buy it all the fucking time, but the rest of us maybe do not.
We have been a fruit cult family in our house for a long time, so I have that stuff and I've been watching it, but I understand why others don't.
Yeah,
and
I don't. I don't. So
and they don't do a very good job of like creating sort of viral interest in what they're doing.
Right.
So there's no like FOMO related to not having it, which is usually what you need to do if you want to get people to subscribe.
Amen. I am susceptible to FOMO.
Last thing on the MLS side, Pablo Maurer did a unbelievably well-sourced, sourced and deep dive report on Ernst Tanner and his fucking terrible being. Like, he's just obviously a terrible human being that, allegedly, I have to say this, he's allegedly a terrible human being that mistreats people and is discriminatory towards minorities and a variety of other things that you can read in the article. But it's good to see Pablo step back into journalism, because he's fucking great at it.
He is.
And this is a long article. It's on The Guardian. Alex Abnos, who's a good friend of the pod, is kind of building a U.S. soccer coverage model over there on The Guardian, and worked with Pablo to help put this together. It's a long read, as it typically is with Pablo, but it's extremely well reported. Some capital J journalism shit. And within 24 hours of him reporting it, all of a sudden Tanner's on administrative leave and the MLS is investigating him. So it shows you that this reporting is important. Mm-hmm. And it's stuff that needs to continue to happen. And I'm just glad that Pablo had a place to do it, and that it is having the effect that it should. And I will just ask all of y'all to go read about it, because you can form your own opinions of Ernst Tanner by doing that. It's hard to come across positively in this one, but you can go learn about all those details there. The last thing, I'm not even going to get into U.S. Women's national team roster or any of that stuff. The playoffs are back, man. Saturday night, LAFC Vancouver. Well, it's the big game, right? Like,
yeah, that's going to be a banger, absolutely.
Our guy Seb Berhalter is going to be out there for Vancouver for his team. Thomas Muller, Seb Berhalter, it's on. No, but seriously, Son Heung-min, Dennis Mwanga, like, we're going to have quite the match. I think Gabon, unfortunately, did not make it into the playoff, so they are out of the World Cup qualifying. At one point, they looked like they might make it through, but they were playing against Nigeria, and Victor Osimhen at the end of that one in extra time. So, unfortunately for Denis Bouanga, he will not be playing in the World Cup, but there will be quite the battle on the field in BC Place. 53,000, complete sellout. I've been looking forward to this one for about 4 weeks.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we get 4 pretty high quality games hopefully this weekend. So
yeah, we'll see. NYCFC is strong. They Alonso Martinez tore his ACL, so they have they're in deep shit.
Yeah, but the Ernst Tanner stuff adds a little bit of intrigue to the whole thing. So yeah, that's good. That's good
for sure.
And it's a lot.
Cincinnati Miami is the one I'm interested in.
It's a holiday week for me, so.
Oh yeah,
I got shit to do, man.
School teachers ain't got shit to do all next week, so you're just gonna
go.
Party. You're in party mode.
Just a big old soccer party, and Champions League comes back next week too, so it's good, man. Lots of soccer.
That is a tournament that Tottenham Hotspur participates in, so and they're doing actually okay in that one. So North London Derby on Sunday, so I am solely focused on that. Don't have a whole lot of high hopes for that one.
They're going to do great.
Somehow Spurs have a longer injury list than Arsenal, if you can believe it or not. So it's gonna be rough. Hopefully Rodrigo Bentancur doesn't red card himself out of a game again. We'll see. Anyway, until then and until next week, I'm Drew. He's Cody. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye-bye.